My Husqvarna FS450 Supermoto has been up for sale for almost 2 months now. And if you look very closely, you might notice it's still here. Nobody wants it. But I think I know what the problem is. At least I hope so that I never make the same mistake again.
So this is my predicament. I can't sell this bike because no one wants it, but I can't ride it because I don't want to put more hours on it or risk crashing it.
So it's just sitting here, taking up space in my workshop, costing me money, and looking really good, which just makes me want to ride it. However, I've never struggled to sell a bike in the past. They usually go within a week or two. So I've been trying to figure out why nobody wants this bike. Actually, that's not true. I've had hundreds of people asking me if it's still available and plenty making me offers. But all of those offers are so low that it would make more sense to keep the bike than to sell it for that price.
I know what you're thinking now, that I've put it up for sale at a ridiculously high price like $6,000, and everyone can tell that it's not worth that, right?
But it's currently up for the equivalent of $3,800, but in my local currency, of course, which no one's ever heard of. Hence why I just use dollars.
There are Honda dirt bikes from 2007 that were converted into a Supermoto in somebody's guest bathroom, selling for the same price.
Who would want that over this sexy beast? I know this is starting to sound like an advert, worse than if I was promoting Raid Shadow Legends. Which reminds me, I'm just kidding. I'd never stoop that low, unless it was like the price of the Supermoto. I'm not trying to sell it to you. It just fascinates me how some bikes are effortless to sell and others are impossible. There's definitely some psychology to it, and I want to figure it out.
Because it's not old either. Well, at least not to me. It's a 2017. I know when you do the maths that starts to sound quite old, but my MT-09 is a 2018 and my YZ250 is a 2019. And they're two of the newest bikes I've ever owned. It's not like the 2023 FS450s are that much better either. Plus, they're selling for almost $10,000. So you could almost buy 3 of these for the price of a new one. If you let me do the calculations, that is.
I will admit that it has a few more hours on it than someone who races Supermoto at a high level might want. At 144 hours, technically it should have had a new crank, valves, and conrod by now, and be on its 3rd piston. But for the average Joe like me, and for the average Joe that should ultimately be buying this bike, that is completely irrational.
My comment sections were filled with people who have put hundreds more hours on the same engine, telling me that I'm worrying about nothing. As you know, I did put a new piston in mine to ease my own concerns, and it's never skipped a beat, even with my top-tier riding. I mean, I almost got my knee down once, in pit lane.
I have, however, come to realize that the whole engine hours and rebuild thing might be one of the issues. It's one thing when you see that it has quite a few hours on it, but it's another when you hear that it's had a fresh piston installed by an unqualified mechanic who had never done that before. And none of the parts or labor is warranted. I can see how that is kind of concerning. In my mind, a fresh top end is reassuring, but I wouldn't trust a random guy to open an engine either. In my defense, it's done 2 track days since then, so if it was going to blow up due to my incompetence, it would have done it already. Plus, my mom says I'm a great mechanic, so it must be true. There are some positives too. For starters, Husqvarna has a full list of all the previous owners, none of which were racers, and nobody can thrash a bike quite like a racer.
It's also in great shape. The only downsides are the tire rub under the fenders, which can easily be fixed with new plastics, and some scratches under the frame from getting put on a stand hundreds of times. But that's expected wear and tear.
But even if none of what I've mentioned was an issue, it still has one giant flaw preventing someone from buying it. Ultimately, it's just a toy. and a very specific toy at that. It literally has zero purpose besides from being fun. A street bike, for example, can be ridden on the road for fun, to get to work or run errands, to save fuel or beat the traffic, or even on the racetrack. A dirt bike can be ridden in a field next to your house, on your local trails, or at a motocross track, even on a farm. But a supermoto, especially a race one like this with slicks, can only be used at one place, a karting track. They're pretty useless unless you're into supermoto. That makes it a very difficult bike to justify buying unless you're into supermoto, and a very small percentage of bikers actually ride supermoto. The only reason I could justify buying this in the first place was because of this YouTube channel. Otherwise, it would have just been an expensive toy. And now, I'm stuck with it. But there are worse things to be stuck with. So the question is, should I continue trying to sell it? Should I trade it for a different bike? Or keep it? Just accept the fact that nobody wants it and continue riding it. Because after all, it's an awesome bike and I could make more silly videos with it, like the Gymkhana tribute.
So if it's taught me anything, it's that I shouldn't buy very niche bikes because they won't be so easy to sell. Unless I never plan on selling them, that is. But anyway, I'll see you on the next ride.